A big mistake that we cross over within the bodybuilding world and the athletic world is that we transfer a lot of the athletic development, functional movement principles incorrectly to the bodybuilding, muscle building, hypertrophy world, where some of them can be counterintuitive. One of them is actually creating tension, irradiation, and squeezing the grip as hard as possible. This is what we're taught. We're taught, when you're moving, right? If I got my barbell here, or if I'm doing some type of, like an RDL, for example, I'm like, all right, let's death grip the bar, let's squeeze it really hard, let's create irradiation, let's create lines of tension. That's going to be optimal for force development. Yeah, correct. Generally speaking. Now, when we talk about bodybuilding, stacking on muscle, and we talk about isolating and targeting specific muscle groups, my boy Jay Ellis, he made it very clear to me. I'm like, damn, that's a big mistake we make, is that we death grip everything, we create too much irradiation, and what it does, if we just think about the lateral raise, for example, okay? Let's go the classic, all right, create tension, create irradiation, squeeze, lateral raise, control, like squeeze really hard, like create tension, strict technique form. Yep, great. And it's probably a mistake I've made in my coaching and own training is that, because what we're doing, okay, by creating a lot of this tension in a movement where we want to isolate, whatever movement you're doing, where you're trying to isolate, target single joint movements, is you're engaging fixator, synergist, stabilizer muscle groups, which are going to help you move the load, correct. However, don't we want to target specifically that muscle group and then drive a strong stimulus through that target group? If we're talking about the lateral raise, well, I'm trying to hit medial, lateral, anterior, delt, depending on my hand position. And so if I'm doing that, and if I have a really, really tight, hard as shit grip, right? All right, now I'm switching on like dozens of other synergist and fixator muscle groups, which are going to help me stabilize me, which is great in athletic world and movement. But if we're talking targeting specifically, well, what if we do a lighter grip? Look at my fingers now. I'd look at people in like muscle sitting, I'd be like, man, your grip is weak as shit. I'm an idiot. I didn't realize, no, it's actually helping. It's actually helping them target the specific isolated group or muscle. So if I have a lighter grip here, well, suddenly, yeah, maybe I can't lift as much load, okay, which is fine. It's funny because some of the stronger guys actually, their superior technique and smart training supersedes lifting as heavy as possible. And suddenly, having this lighter grip enables me to target and drive a stronger stimulus, mind-muscle connection through that deltoid without engaging as much as of the surrounding musculature. And so that's a huge benefit when we talk about driving a specific stimulus to a target muscle group. Look at my fingers, they're more laxed here. I'm not squeezing the shit out of them, trying to create as much tension and irradiation as possible. Now, that can be a variation in of itself as well, that's fine, but let's be at least aware of the considerations around when we create tension and when we squeeze our grip, because I've talked about it in my previous post on Orthic Education actually, is that's a big help to squeeze the shit out the bar and death grip. That's gonna have its place in some movements, in some areas, but in other areas, particularly when we want to isolate and target, it can be counterintuitive some ways in driving as strong of a stimulus through one single or a small group of muscles that you're trying to isolate for muscle building or even, building up weaknesses point of view. And so, this is something that I used to think, and now I've self-corrected, self-taught, and relearned, particularly thanks to Jay, who has taught me a tremendous amount, and now can reapply in a smarter way. It's not just training hard, right? We can always train harder, work harder. To me, that's easy. But can we train smarter? Now, that's the game changer.